The following is a conversation with Andrew Sipley. Andrew is a trainer and nutrition expert at Co-Movement. He recently completed a 7-day carnivore diet, eating only animal products. In today's episode, we're going to dive into his experience with this particular diet and other very intriguing educational pieces surrounding the carnivore diet. If you have not yet listened to part 1 and part 2 of the carnivore diet episodes, I highly recommend doing so. You are listening to the Co-Movement Gym podcast, where we inspire people to move and live courageously. If you are enjoying this content, please support our sponsors in the description. I thank each and every one of you for being on this journey with us. Now, please enjoy the show. Folks, listen up. I want to take a brief moment and thank our podcast show sponsors, Lombardi Chiropractic, Native Path Supplements, and Redmond Life. Lombardi Chiropractic has been my personal chiropractor for 10 years and has kept my body strong and healthy. Native Path Supplements are used by numerous Co-Movement clients and our coaching team here at the facility. I highly recommend that you try their chocolate collagen peptides. I was made aware of Redmond Life by one of our trainers here at the facility. He recommended I try Relight electrolyte powder. This supplement has dramatically improved my afternoon energy levels and overall hydration. I'd like to thank these 3 companies for providing outstanding service and products that make our society healthier and more resilient. Mention the Co-Movement Gym podcast when you call Lombardi Chiropractic, and not only will they treat you like family, they will provide a nice, enticing discount to all listeners. And use code COMO15, that's C-O-M-O 15, at checkout when shopping at nativepath.com or redmond.life and receive 15% off all your orders. Your support to our show sponsors assists in us paying for expenses and continuing to provide content we hope you all enjoy. Okay, and we're back. Andy, how you doing?
Good. How's it going, Josh?
Good, man. So the first 2 episodes for the carnivore diet here were pretty popular. We heard from a lot of people. I think we opened up a lot of minds and ideas behind this way of eating.
Yeah.
So here we are with the 3rd episode.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting. I mean, it's it definitely goes against conventional wisdom and what we've been taught for our whole lives. You know, that fruits and vegetables are what you should build your diet around, and that they're so healthy and so good for you, which is what both of us thought for a very long time. And also, which we're still not certain about right now. Like, we should reemphasize that for the listeners, that neither you nor me is endorsing a carnivore diet and saying that that's the way that people should eat. We're just kind of learning about it and experimenting with it. And so what we're doing in these podcasts is trying to report on what we've been learning by reading books and listening to podcasts and such from people who are promoting this diet and endorsing it. So we want to get the information out there and share it with people and see what other people think about it. But we're kind of experimenting ourselves. And that's going to be a big part of this episode. Is I just experimented with it for 10 days, and we'll talk a little about, you know, what my experience was like.
Yeah, that's good that you bring that up, because I was getting text messages and emails from people that were like, what? Like, I just started eating more vegetables and dark chocolate.
Yeah.
And again, we're not saying like, you know, this is the way that like, you know, eating whole foods, and if you're not carnivore, right, like that you're eating unhealthy, right? Like, so don't go overboard with some of the stuff that we're saying. We're just saying, like, we're diving deeper into certain things, and our job is to bring that, you know, to the public. And in the end, it all depends on how you feel as an individual.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like, if you're eating 80% vegetables and, you know, only fish, and you feel great
and you feel amazing, and your doctors are happy and say that you're in perfect health, and great, you found what works for you.
Absolutely. And like, me and you are always experimenting. We're always learning, trying things. Like, we love dark chocolate.
Yeah.
In the last month since we've talked, I went from a whole bar per day to half a bar. And that's been hard for me because I love dark chocolate.
Yeah, me too.
Also, I've cut out nuts and seeds. And I'm eating, you know, a lot less like leafy greens and stuff, you know, and I feel great, you know. So I think it's important that we emphasize that it's an ever evolving process,
Yes.
and our bodies change with age. And so, your nutrition will change too at some level, possibly. So I know I want to start this episode off with some really cool educational pieces that we left off in episode 2.
Yeah. We'll wrap up the educational stuff, what we've learned from reading about carnivore and what we've learned from some of the people who are experts in this area. Last week, I think, or on the last episode, we talked about the various plant toxins and anti-nutrients and stuff.
Yeah.
So the reasons you might want to avoid plants. Maybe we'll just finish up talking about a few of the nutrients that are only available in animal products that you don't get if you're eating a vegan diet or if you're eating mostly plant products. And that is one of the arguments for carnivores, that it's more nutritionally dense, that you actually get all of the nutrients you need, all of the vitamins, all the minerals, all the, the cofactors and stuff like that.
Yep.
And there's some things that are missing in plants that you do get from animals.
Sure.
So maybe first I'll mention, I was thinking, first of all, I just mentioned eggs really quickly. Only that this always comes up in the carnivore community. The eggs are like nature's multivitamin. They really do contain everything that a growing organism needs. I mean, if you think about it, that is a growing organism. You have an egg and then a chick comes out of it. It literally supplies everything the body needs to grow, which I always thought was a pretty interesting point.
Yep.
And you can't really say that for any vegetable. But as far as the nutrients, some vital nutrients that are found only in animal foods, these are things that we need and you can't get them from plants. So, and there's actually a longer list than I expected. The one that everyone knows is B12. So like everyone on a vegan diet knows they have to supplement with vitamin B12. It's not available from plants at all. 52% of vegans are deficient in B12.
Wow.
And that's even though most of them supplement, although probably some of them don't, and that's why there's that deficiency. But there's tons of B12 in animal products. So that's the first one I wanted to mention. That's probably the most well-known. Can you think of any that you would say are available in animal products, but not in plants?
The only one for me, and again, I don't know this at nearly the level you do, but saturated fat, right?
Yeah.
I know it's not maybe a mineral or a vitamin, but like that's a big, when we're looking at like, and this really is why I like this diet so much. When you look at hormone regulation, like saturated fat, which got a bad rap forever, is obviously we're eating quite a bit of it with animal products. And for like testosterone, especially in guys, like I'm very much intrigued by that, butter, all the animal fats, like that is, for me, that's the main component that I look at. That obviously you're not getting any in vegetables or fruit,
right?
Or you could argue maybe some seeds and nuts, right? I don't know, saturated fat.
A little bit,
but like that is powerhouse nutrition.
When it comes to hormones, they typically tend to be built out of either amino acids, so that it's basically like a giant protein. So like growth hormone, for example, is just a string of amino acids. And then other hormones are lipid based, and they're made out of fats. So testosterone, which you already brought up, that's one of the lipid based ones.
Yes.
Yep.
And Andrew Huberman, I think yesterday, posted on Instagram with like raising testosterone, and he had said like eggs cooked in butter. Like awesome. He also gave some supplements too. But so much of that thread in the comments were all about animal fats and like how you just feel really good with them. So
I will say one correction is you can get some saturated fats from plants. So for example, coconuts are really good.
Yes. And I have coconut oil, coconut flakes. I don't eat a lot of it, but I don't shy away from it.
Right.
So
so other nutrients, omega-3s, that's a really big one. Everyone knows the importance of omega-3 fatty acids. They're anti-inflammatory. They improve cell membrane fluidity, really, really important. You want healthy cell membranes. That's kind of one of the biggest determinants of a healthy cell. And you can get omega-3s sort of from some plants. Like vegans will usually use flaxseed or maybe chia seeds.
Sure.
But those contain something called alpha linoleic acid.
Yes, ALA.
ALA,
Yes.
which has to be converted into omega-3s in your body.
Yep.
And just like with all these plant nutrients, the conversion is not always that good.
Yeah, and I think it was Paul Saladino said with chia seeds, and probably flaxseed too, but there's a compound in there. We probably talked about it in a prior episode.
I'm not sure what that would be, but pretty much all plants contain various anti-nutrients.
Yeah, but he said like chia seeds were like on the upper echelon for something not so good. I forget what it was, and it's funny because I just bought like a 2-pound bag. Because I'll put them in like yogurt and cook with them, at some level because they bulk up and I didn't throw it out, but I put it in like a bottom drawer.
Right.
So I'm not eating chia seeds.
So B12, omega-3s, we've got choline. Choline is really important. Used to build cell membranes and produce certain signaling molecules your body uses. Absent from plant foods, abundant in eggs. Eggs are one of the best sources of choline. But choline is really, really important for brain health, probably above all else. And again, deficient in a plant-based diet, plenty of it in animal foods. Iron, that's a really big one. So you can get iron from some like vegetables, dark green leafy vegetables, but it's a totally different form of iron. What our body needs is something called heme iron, and that's something that you get from animal products. And again, when you get it from plants, there's a conversion that has to take place.
Sure.
Not so good in a lot of people.
Sure.
Vitamin K2, that's one of the ones that I'm really big on.
I supplement that.
Yep. Yeah. That's something, when it comes to supplements, I try not to take too many, but that's a really valuable one to take. Helps prevent heart disease because it prevents your arteries from calcifying. It makes sure, you need calcium for strong bones and teeth, they say. That's because calcium will calcify things, it'll make them harder. You don't want calcium going into your arteries or it'll calcify and harden your arteries. Vitamin K2 is important because it basically directs the calcium into your bones and teeth and keeps them out of your arteries and out of your other tissues that you don't want to harden.
Interesting. Now, I think you said to take the K2 because I'm supplementing vitamin D. Does that help to absorb the vitamin D or no? Or is there no correlation?
No, there's no correlation there, I don't think, between K2 and vitamin D.
Gotcha.
But usually it's people are taking K2 and vitamin D for strong bones and teeth, especially people who are worried about osteoporosis or something.
Sure.
So they want the calcium to get where it's supposed to go. Having adequate vitamin D levels helps you metabolize calcium better and get it to where you want it. And then the K2 also helps in that regard.
Sure. Okay. That's what
so they do go together in that respect. Creatine is a big one. Another thing that I think a lot of people should supplement with, honestly. It's well known in the bodybuilding world because it helps improve muscle function, basically. But there's a lot of studies coming out now showing the benefits of the elderly population taking creatine.
Really?
To prevent sarcopenia, so age-related muscle loss. And then also for brain function, like cognitive function. The studies on creatine around how well your brain works and your nervous system are awesome.
Well, that's interesting because I think most people relate creatine to athletes.
Right.
Right. Oh, wow. Huh. I never heard that.
So that's a really big one. And that's, again, not present in plant foods at all, but abundant in meat and eggs.
Now, a question, with cooking your meat, do you lose nutrients the more, let's take ground beef, well done versus medium rare? Because I've heard, like, because you see all these people like Liver King, different people talking about like raw or near raw, or like, does it matter? Or
I don't think it's necessary at all. And a lot of people that I follow in this space don't think it's necessary. There's always the argument that cooking anything, vegetables, meat, whatever, will potentially degrade some of the nutrients or whatever, like, some of the vitamins might be destroyed. But people do very well on carnivore-based diets when they're eating all cooked meats.
Okay, that's good then, because I don't, like, I like medium, but I don't want it to like be bleeding.
I'm not going to eat raw meat either. No. And I'll just mention two other ones, just two amino acids. Carnosine, it's an amino acid necessary for proper muscle function again, absent from plants, abundant in meats. And then taurine. And then taurine is another amino acid necessary for proper nerve function. Also helps prevent muscle cramps in some people, or at least a taurine deficiency can cause muscle cramping.
Sure.
Maybe that's something to look into if you're someone who gets like calf cramps at night or something like that.
Okay.
But again, taurine, absent from plants, abundant in meat and animal products.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
kind of an interesting list there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's all really good stuff for sure.
And then the last thing that I just wanted to finish with was a couple of the nutrients that these tend to come up a lot. Like vitamin C is one big one. So people will say, if you're not eating, because there is no there actually is vitamin C in animal products, but usually when you look at labels, they'll say it doesn't contain any vitamin C.
Sure.
And so everyone thinks you need plants to get your vitamin C.
Yep.
And there's also like a lot of debate over how much vitamin C that you need.
Yep.
So a big concern with vitamin C is, I mean, the biggest problem is if you don't get enough, then you get scurvy.
Sure.
Right. That's the big issue. There's, like I said, there's quite a debate over how much you need for optimal health. But what's interesting is meat actually contains all of the vitamin C that you need to prevent scurvy. So like, for example, there's some kind of interesting things here I found when I was researching, but Napoleon's armies used to eat horse meat to cure scurvy.
No way.
Because that was a big issue back then. Scurvy was a real thing.
Yeah.
It killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
So they would eat horse meat as a way to prevent scurvy and cure it.
Okay.
Antarctic explorers would consume penguins to cure scurvy.
Wow.
So, all these people thinking that like if you go on a carnivore diet and you're not eating any fruits and vegetables, you're going to get scurvy or have vitamin C deficiency.
Yep.
People have used animal products for years, back when scurvy was a real concern, to get rid of scurvy.
That's really cool. I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, only 10 milligrams of vitamin C is needed to prevent scurvy. So as long as you get 10 milligrams per day.
I'm taking 3,000.
Yeah.
Which is not high. I do 3 servings of 1,000.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Only 10 milligrams. So a typical burger contains 5 milligrams.
Sure.
So you've already got half of what you need.
Sure.
One of the interesting things is nutrition facts on labels. Like when you look in the grocery store, we'll say that meat contains no vitamin C. But there's an asterisk next to that. The fine print will read, this is an assumed value, not tested.
Gotcha.
And it's just kind of assumed that all meat contains no vitamin C.
Yep.
But in reality, 1 pound of ground beef has about 15 milligrams.
Oh, interesting. Huh.
And all meat contains some.
Sure. That's good. All right.
What did I want to say? Oh, one more point about vitamin C is that it turns out when you are on a low carb diet, you need a lot less vitamin C. And this is something I just learned recently. So your dietary requirement for it goes up if you're eating carbohydrates, but if you're on a ketogenic diet, which the carnivore diet is, then you don't need as much. And the reason for that is vitamin C and glucose are very similar molecularly. They look very almost identical. So glucose competes with vitamin C for absorption. So if you're eating a high carb diet and you've got a lot of glucose entering your system, that can crowd out some of the vitamin C. But if you're on a carnivore or a ketogenic diet, you don't have much glucose, you're not taking in any. So all of the vitamin C that you consumed gets absorbed. So some of the estimates about how much vitamin C you need are based on the fact that the typical American eats like 400 grams of carbs a day. The requirements might be a lot less.
Significantly less. Yeah. Okay.
And then I think the only other one I wanted to mention was just fiber, which is a big one when it comes to the carnivore diet.
Sure.
Everyone thinks that you need fiber for healthy bowel movements.
Yeah, that's like all over.
Yep. Yeah. And if you have like constipation or digestive issues, they're always like, well, eat a high fiber diet, get some bulk in there to help move your stool along or whatever. There was a really amazing study that so there's one carnivore proponent that I follow. His name is Dr. Paul Mason. He's out of Australia. And he does some great talks on YouTube. He has one specifically about fiber where he brings up all these graphs and stuff so people can look into that. It's like a 20-minute lecture. But he references a study where they took people and they put them into 4 groups. One group ate a high fiber diet. One group ate a moderate fiber. One group was low fiber. And then the 4th group went 0 fiber. for their diet. And they questioned these guys on all the different metrics around digestive health, like constipation, straining, gas, bloating, abdominal discomfort, all that kind of stuff. The high fiber group did the worst. It had like all these symptoms.
Sure.
The moderate fiber group did better. Low fiber did better. The zero fiber group was the only one that had zero symptoms at all. There was no bloating, no constipation, no discomfort, no gas,
Sure.
None of that kind of stuff.
And that makes sense only because of some experiences that I had, right? So like now I don't take any fiber supplements. Like I haven't in a long time, but I used to.
Yeah.
I take psyllium husk, inulin, or how do you pronounce it?
Yeah, inulin.
Inulin.
Yep.
And I had, gas, bloating, like weird, like almost like a bacterial overload, I felt.
Yeah.
But I was told like, eat more and more fiber and 25 grams, 30 grams of, whatever that was supplementing was a shit ton.
Yep.
And it just messed me up. And so now, I just eat the way that I eat, but I don't take supplements for that.
Yeah. And this is why I think you hear so many anecdotal reports about people with digestive issues going on a carnivore diet and fixing all of their digestive upset.
Sure.
They all of a sudden they have better bowel movements. They're not constipated anymore and so on.
Now that I'm doing 80-20,
like 80% animal and 20% plant. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. And the 20% is coming from mainly just fruits and fruits really. And raw dairy. But my digestion, I'm 40 now, has never been better. It's been like that for and it wasn't bad before, but irregular, right? Like cycles of like, whoa, why is that going on and different things, but definitely not a problem. But now it's like perfect all the time. And I truly believe because I got rid of the plant compounds, seeds, nuts, and I don't know, I just think I'm absorbing my food better. So I attribute it to that.
Well, it's interesting too, because, your intestines aren't they're pretty narrow, right? So if you have constipation, that means things are kind of blocked up and you're trying to get all of this stool out through a narrow tube, It doesn't make much sense to say, let's add more bulk, let's throw a bunch of bulk in there and try to fit an even larger bolus of substrate through a small a small tube.
And to speak to that, there was days when I was supplementing the fiber where like I'd go to the bathroom and I'd be like, wow, that's a lot of shit. And then other days where it was like not much at all, but I felt like I really had to go. And it was just like, you can only imagine the 20 some feet of intestines on how you just have like massive bulk sitting in there and then a string of nothing. And it was, it messed me up way more than I thought it would, considering all the recommendations were saying doing that. And now I don't eat any of it.
And for anyone who thinks that you need fiber to have bowel movements, just think of a baby. They poop all the time. You're always changing diapers and they're not eating any fiber. They're just drinking breast milk, which is fiber free.
And the same thing goes with, this is a slightly off topic, but not really. I don't take any probiotics supplements.
Me neither.
Because 90% are dead anyways, I was told, whatever. But like, it's a living organism, so it sits on the shelf, right? It makes sense. And they're expensive as hell. But when I was taking probiotics, same thing. The fluctuation of like, maybe you got some live pills and now, things are different and
total guess.
Now I take no probiotics, which I know a ton of people do, and they're spending a lot of money for it, but I'm getting them from the raw dairy products. And raw sauerkraut that we make ourselves. And I think that's it, other than just my regular foods. And so no probiotics, so.
So I think that's, really, as far as like education, we covered it in the last episode. That was the last little bit that I wanted to throw in here. And for the listeners, I tried going on a carnivore diet a couple weeks ago. And I didn't know how long I was going to do it. I said, maybe I'll do it for 2 or 3 days. Maybe I'll do it for 3 or 4 weeks. I have no idea. I did it for about 10 days, maybe. It was a little over a week. So I guess the last part of this podcast is we'll just talk about how that went, I guess.
I'm really interested to hear like what you ate how you felt and just like your overall opinion on that. What did a day of eating look like for you?
So usually my breakfast most days was eggs, bacon, and butter.
Eggs, bacon, and butter. That
Yep.
sounds great.
I enjoyed it. So everything I ate on Carnivore, I loved.
Sure.
I mean, these are all foods that I really enjoy.
Sure.
And I would try to eat a lot of that, and then I would come to work, and then I would, it would fill me up for several hours. I'd go home and I'd eat later in the afternoon.
2 meals a day?
I was doing three.
Okay,
Yeah,
sure.
I like to eat often. It's a little harder on Carnivore
because
you
you
can't
had
eat all the little
mentioned to
snacks.
me you were thinking one maybe meal a day.
I was thinking two was my plan.
Okay.
Because I was thinking I would do like a huge breakfast in the morning, lots of eggs and bacon, whatever, and then another big meal in the evening. But I do like to eat more frequently, so it ended up becoming 3 meals a day. Yeah.
Okay.
But usually, like my second meal would be, let me think. It would either be a burger sometime in the afternoon or some fish, possibly. But I was eating a lot of cheese too. Like,
yeah, sure.
Yep. So I'd smother my eggs would sometimes have cheese added. My burger would be a cheeseburger.
Yep.
The only snack I really had was cottage cheese, which I do like.
Yep.
Or some kefir, which I drink on occasion. If I had raw milk, maybe I would have done that. But yeah, that's really all I was eating was ground beef, eggs, bacon, and then fish. And I think one day I might have had shrimp that I cooked with a friend.
Butter.
Yep, in butter.
Pork lard? Or no?
I used that to cook in. Yep.
Okay. Interesting. What else? What else did you consume? Is that it?
That was pretty much it.
That was pretty much it.
Yep.
And you got bored.
I got bored. Yeah. So this is what's interesting for me is the foods that I was eating, I loved. Those are like some of my favorite foods. I love eating fish or any seafood. I love burgers, cheeseburgers especially. I love eggs. I eat eggs all the time. Bacon is great. But yeah, there's just not a lot of variety there. Like even with those foods that I absolutely love, there was times when I wanted to eat, but I was looking in my fridge and I'm like, I don't feel like eggs again.
Totally.
I don't want another burger.
Yep.
God, I've had way too much cheese today. How much cheese can I eat? So that was the most difficult part of Carnivore for me was the lack of variety. And there are foods that I really love, like dark chocolate or some macadamia nuts or I'm trying to think of even what else, but what I craved. But in any case, yeah, there were other foods that I would normally throw into my regular diet. Sure. Yep. And being restricted from that was tough for me.
Yeah, sure. I understand that. I haven't done the strict version that you did, but even just doing the 80-20, even that, sometimes I'll find limited options. Yeah. Where I'm like, you know what, I just want sweet potatoes or, rice or something. Yep. Which again, not bad choices, right? But when you're looking at it more from a strict perspective, it wouldn't fall in alignment with that. But yeah, it is hard to have and some people find a benefit with that though. Because it's less stress.
Some people love the simplicity.
Yes, they do. Like Paul Saladino is like ground beef 3 times a day, and he's totally happy with that, and it works for him.
And you hear about that all the time. People going on a carnivore diet, and they'll have like steak for breakfast, and then have another steak for dinner, and they're like, "That was the best day ever."
I know.
I love steak, but I would get bored doing that.
Me too. Me too. Yeah, that's cool hearing you say that. I'm hoping this inspires listeners to experiment within their own way of eating, to get to feeling their best with whatever works for them.
Yes.
Right. For me right now, I'm on, like I said, the 80-20. It's more of the Paul Saladino side. Yep. I'm eating a ton of animal foods and, proteins and fats. Beef tallow, pork lard, butter. I'm eating eggs, all the meats, some fish, cheeses, sour cream, yogurt, I'm raw dairy, and then I'm eating maybe a serving of fruit a day, like a cup or 2 of berries, and that's it. And feel pretty good, you know?
I think one of the biggest challenges with carnivore is that we live in a modern world where other things aside from meat are very easy to get to in
Totally.
the supermarket.
Totally.
Like a lot of our ancestors would have been on a carnivore diet out of necessity. All they had was the deer that they hunted
Totally.
and the fish that they pulled from the stream.
Yep.
They didn't have the option of going to a supermarket and buying a jar of almond butter or some like whatever,
Sure.
like whatever plant non-carnivore products they wanted. They didn't have dark chocolate tempting them at the supermarket or whatever.
Go macro bars.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So I think one of the things we should talk about here is how I felt.
Yeah.
Because this is the most important part, really. We're trying to evaluate this diet.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt incredible.
Awesome.
I actually felt really, really good on carnivore.
For coming from you,
yeah,
that's like next level.
Yeah. So this is what's interesting to me in my own mind as I'm working through this right now is I thought that if I felt amazing on carnivore, the feeling so good would make me want to stick to it. Like going into this, I'm like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to feel. Maybe I'm going to hate carnivore. I don't know. But I kind of thought if I did a week of carnivore and I felt really, really good, then that would be enough to make me want to stick with it for like, a whole month or who knows how long.
Sure.
Right? So it's kind of interesting that I actually felt better during that week than I had previously. And yet still at the end of the week, I was like, but I'm bored and I want some dark chocolate or whatever.
Sure.
I'm wrestling with why I felt so good on carnivore because the carnivore proponents might say I eliminated all of those plant foods and I got rid of all these toxins and stuff. And maybe that's why I felt really good. And they could be right. Maybe that is why I felt good. But I've done ketogenic diets in the past, not carnivore, but just very low carb diets. And I basically, when I was doing carnivore, I felt just as good as I do when I do a regular keto diet. And I kind of think that most of the benefit and most of like why I felt so good was because I was on a ketogenic diet for over a week. And that diet has always worked really well for me. I always feel really good.
Sure.
I lost like something like 4 pounds in the 10 days that I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep. I
Interesting.
ended up getting a little bit leaner.
So 160, 162?
Well, I started weighing like 168. So I might have been like 164 at the end of it.
So why do you think you lost weight? Because this is one thing.
Water would have been about 3 pounds probably. Because I was not taking carbohydrates and carbohydrates store water.
Gotcha.
So a lot of that was just water weight went away.
You didn't lose muscle.
But no, I didn't lose muscle at all. But I do think that maybe I could tell that I got a little bit leaner. I mean, it was only 10 days, so you don't lose a ton of fat. Sure. But I actually looked more defined at the end of it.
Which for listeners, you're normally 8 or 9%, lean.
Yeah. So maybe I lost half a percentage of body fat or something. But to me, it's noticeable because I see myself every day.
Sure. Yeah.
But my energy levels were fantastic. I could tell I was nourishing my body. My body had all that it needed. Like I felt good physically and stuff. Literally the only problem was just craving some things that were on the restricted list that I normally enjoy eating. You know? So,
yeah, that's a great insight.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I wish I could tell why I felt good, whether was it because I excluded plant toxins or was it simply I was getting the benefits of being on a ketogenic diet, which we've talked about in the past.
Could be a combination of all of it.
Yeah, maybe a combination of those two.
Sure. Yeah. And those are two powerful pieces.
Yeah.
Ketogenic and then no plant toxins. Right. So wow. Do you see yourself doing it once a year or not again? Or I know you're more of an 80-20 anyway. So it's not like you're far off, right?
Yep.
Which is crazy to hear you say you felt an improvement because your baseline isn't a normal baseline, right? Like you eat very clean, I eat very clean. So to get improvement from that for us is hard, right? Right. And you did.
I did, yeah.
So do you think do you see yourself doing anything like that? Or
I think if I was going to try to do carnivore again, I would have to find more foods.
Sure.
I want a little bit more variety.
Which there is.
And there is,
Yeah.
maybe I just didn't try hard enough to, I went into it and I stocked up on like a bunch of ground beef ahead of time, and I bought like a few dozen eggs and whatnot. So I kind of already had in my fridge these few things I knew that I would like. Maybe I should have planned better as far as like just a greater variety of animal products, so I can mix things up a little bit. I don't experiment with some things, make some mussels or oysters, or it's just something I don't normally eat.
Totally.
And maybe that would have helped me out a little bit.
Yep.
But as far as whether I would do it again, I like, every year I try to do a phase of keto, and I always feel really good. I can go for a month or 2 months or 3 months eating a ketogenic diet. But that ketogenic diet allows things like dark chocolate, macadamia nuts, almonds, coconut, avocado, guacamole. So there's way more variety there. So it's a lot easier to stick with.
Totally.
I know that I'll do keto many more times in my life. I always kind of dip in and out of that. Whether I would try to make it strict carnivore again, I don't know. Maybe I would try to lean more that way, but whether some things like dark chocolate and avocado snuck their way in, I might just allow that.
Sure. That's what I love with the 80-20.
Yeah.
Because then those foods are more allowed.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Anything else for listeners?
I'm trying to think. I'm still not certain that I believe that a carnivore diet is a very, very healthy diet, and most people will do really, really well on it if they enjoy eating that way and they don't have the boredom issue like I had. But as far as whether it's necessary for optimal health, that's where the verdict is still out for me. Because we talked about all those plant toxins and stuff, and that is a real thing, and that's all been shown. But there's also the question of how detrimental are they?
That, and what are you losing maybe from a nutrient standpoint, right? With a variety of vegetables. I know you get most of it from meat, but there, I think
you can still get some things from plants. Yeah,
absolutely.
Of course.
So where does that equal each other out, if at all, right?
So what I think of when I said those plant anti-nutrients are detrimental, but how detrimental are they? I'm thinking of things like, for example, like gluten. Some people, if they have a single breadcrumb, they go into like anaphylactic shock and it's a medical emergency. Versus me, I've never had a problem with gluten. I can eat an entire loaf of bread.
Me too.
And I won't notice any upset at all. So like, and that's one of the most well-known, plant toxins, so to speak, right? Gluten. But it's interesting how much variability there is between people, where, some people go gluten-free and it fixes all these issues. And then someone like me, I go gluten-free and I'm like, I don't even notice the difference. Now I do eat gluten-free because I know how bad gluten is for you. But I always wonder, like, maybe I could eat bread for my whole life and it would never bother me because I've never had an issue with it,
Me too.
Or like take like lactose, for example, which is from milk. Some people are lactose intolerant and messes them up completely. And then other people like me, I can drink a whole gallon of milk and have no issue, So I kind of wonder, with all those plant toxins and stuff that we went through in the last episode, how many of these things are, maybe they're bad for you, but they don't affect certain people too much. Like say like the oxalates that you get from spinach and dark chocolate. Maybe some people, they eat a few oxalates and they end up with a kidney stone. And then there's someone like me who's been eating an obscene amount of dark chocolate for the last 20 years. And spinach and all these high oxalate foods, and I've never had any issue at all. So that's kind of that's where I would like to see the research go with the carnivore diet is, okay, we've identified all these plant toxins and anti-nutrients and defense chemicals and things. We see the mechanisms by which they cause harm in the human body, but what's the magnitude of that harm? Because if they only cause a teensy weensy little problem, which is barely even noticeable, then do you really have to eliminate those foods? Versus if they cause massive issues, then of course you want to get them out of there. And I think it's going to be something like gluten and lactose, where all of these different plant compounds can really fuck someone up. And then another person can eat them their whole life without having any issue. So I think there's going to be, I think anyone listening to this that wants to, I think it's a self-experiment for everybody. You should eliminate these things, go on a carnivore diet, see how that makes you feel, slowly add back things in. But it's going to take some time to figure out, like, oh, nightshades really mess me up and cause inflammation in my joints, but these other plants don't really give me any problems, and you can kind of figure out what works for you. But I think it is going to be highly individual.
Yeah. And, for people listening, because I know some of the comments on the first 2 episodes were like, we're pretty in depth and like really narrowing things down and whatever, like experiment for yourself. Like, don't take this as like, this, what works for you may work for you. Now, there's a caveat to that. If what you're doing isn't working, something's wrong.
Something needs to change.
Because I see this too with people all the time. Like they eat, chicken and broccoli forever, and they're still 50 pounds overweight and they don't feel good.
Right.
It's not working for you, dude.
Chicken and broccoli isn't working for you.
Yeah,
you gotta change.
Exactly. And don't overlook, and we didn't really talk about the obvious things in these episodes, but like sugar. Eliminate sugar, right? Don't drink alcohol, and if you do, very moderately, right?
Right.
Go to bed. Get sunlight, because you can go with these episodes like down a rabbit hole to where you're like, I'm a carnivore now and all this, but you're still missing some pretty big things. I saw Rob Wolf posted yesterday or the day before, I think it was on Facebook, that he wishes 20 years ago he realized how important sleep was, even over nutrition. He said he would like to know where he would be today if he emphasized sleep over nutrition instead of nutrition over sleep, because of all the research that's coming out now on sleep. So again, like if your sleep's fucked up, like maybe you shouldn't worry about carnivore diet as much. So get your what I say, like the bottom of the pyramid in order, but truly in order. And then you can start hacking up the rung here of saying, does spinach mess me up, or do I feel better with more?
Because it would be crazy to eliminate spinach from your diet in the hopes of decreasing your oxalate load. When you're drinking 5 beers on a Friday, you're not sleeping well. Handle the big things first.
And the same thing goes with supplements, right? Like if you're taking, I just talking to this guy the other day, it blew my mind. He said this like it wasn't a big deal. He said he takes 30 to 40 supplements a day. And I'm like, and then he said in the same sentence, and he's not a listener, so I can say this, but like, but he knows he should eat more whole foods. I'm like, well, yeah, dude, like, because you're spending like $600 a month, and who knows what are you even getting, right? But you're trying to out supplement your way of a shitty diet. Like same thing with that. Like if you're looking for that magical thing and you're not taking, again, the base of the pyramid, work on the base. And then you can start going up. You may find like only a third of the way up the pyramid and you feel great. And then you're like, well, fuck, I'm not going to listen to anything Andy and Josh said with the carnivore because I feel great.
Awesome.
And then move on. Those are big things. Because some of the Texan people were getting back to me were like, their minds were like blown, and now they're all like confused and sketched out. I'm like, don't get like that.
No, I would just say that a lot of recent research is showing that plants may have some detrimental properties that we never really considered before. And we're also learning that animal products are far more nutritious than we used to think. And then just maybe take that information and say, okay, animal products contain all the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients I need. Those are healthy. Maybe I'll have a little bit more of that, or at least not be afraid of animal products. Plants may not be the wonder food that we used to think they were, but fruits and vegetables and stuff. So maybe I won't worry so much about having to force them down. But from there, like, just listen to your body and try to sort things out for yourself. Like, we're not saying you have to eliminate all plants. I'm not doing it. I'm going back to 80-20 like you.
And that's a skill set with people. And this is on top
being aware of your body.
Like that's something I think everyone listening, and us too, right? Because we're trying to dial it in farther, like really paying attention. Digestion, energy, hormones, strength, like all of these, like, how do you feel? Like being honest with yourself. And not just, most people just fluff it, right? They're getting by, more caffeine, whatever, survival. I'm not sick, so I'm great, right? But you're not. And so dialing in that, and then researching and experimenting to fix said issue, right? Like this isn't high level stuff, but I think most people aren't doing anything near that,
Yeah.
so yeah, they
You
should
gotta be a little proactive.
for sure. Cool. Well, that's it. Everyone listening and supporting us, thank you. Check out the sponsors, always in the description. We're going to keep bringing some killer content in 2023. If you have any recommendations or questions, send them over to us, and we'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, everybody. Bye.